Professor Walch, start with a couple questions. You proponents of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or Ether use the word decentralized. We've all heard that word in the testimony to make it appear as though these companies are people with outsized, to make it appear that there are not companies with outsized power over these financial systems. They claim that decentralization puts users on equal footing and reduces inequality. We now know that Wall Street mega banks and hedge funds have a stranglehold, of course, over the financial system. Are there similar actors who could get outsized power in crypto markets?
Absolutely. Yes, I think the term decentralized can really be misleading to us. If we stop at the label of decentralized because this is just crypto and that's the way it is, then we miss looking into these systems and seeing the concentrated pockets of power within them. And parties who sit in those pockets of power include the core software developers that create these systems, maintain them, are responsible for continuing to help them operate if a critical bug is discovered, making decisions about what policies are implemented into the software code that comprises the system. We've seen this again and again when there have been critical bugs identified in crypto systems, and the 4 or 5 software developers have to make a decision about how to handle it for the multi-billion-dollar system. We also see miners in these systems having concentrations of power.
So explore a little bit more the term decentralized. Have there been instances where powerful companies or individuals have been able to bend the rules, claiming decentralization, but bend the rules to benefit themselves?
So we see miners in systems like Ethereum and Bitcoin, the ones that use the proof of work consensus mechanism, being able to exploit their positions. So there are very large mining pools. And what is significant about miners is that they have a power that has not been very well understood. And that is they get to pick the transactions that are in the memory pool and decide whether a transaction goes in there, what order it goes in on this powerful ledger, and they are able to accept bribes. You can call them bribes, you can just call them payments, to exploit that ordering power, taking money for themselves potentially. It's called miner extractable value. And I hope that we will be able to discuss it further because it's seen as a potentially killer for the idea of cryptocurrencies.
This sounds to me like something we see in this committee on a number of different issues, sort of a phony populist marketing brought to us by people that have immense power in the marketplace, one way or the other. Let me ask you one more question, Professor. As you said in your testimony, crypto economic systems are beginning to mirror the functions of the traditional financial system. Talk about risk to financial stability from having a separate financial system operating parallel to the traditional financial system. You talked in your testimony about sort of migrating into the traditional system. What might delineate those risks, if you would?
Sure. So when we have two systems sitting beside each other, one crypto financial system and one traditional financial system, and one, the traditional financial system being regulated while the crypto one is not, we can see through these links that are being built, such as investments in cryptocurrencies by large players in the traditional financial system, like MicroStrategy, like Tesla, who are always in the news these days, with the significant institutional investments, with the crypto investment products, hedge funds, venture capital funds, et cetera. Many, many links are being formed so that things that go wrong in the crypto system, a catastrophic software bug, any sort of failure there can actually have an impact on every single holder of the cryptocurrency that is affected, all the holders of financial products that embed that cryptocurrency, all the investment funds that touch that cryptocurrency, all the potential other cryptocurrencies within the crypto financial system because of the fear of contagion, and that can easily ripple over to the financial system. I'm not claiming that that can happen today, but with every link that is built and the larger the crypto financial system grows, that risk increases.
Thank you. Senator Lummis is recognized for 5 minutes from Wyoming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, for allowing me to go ahead so I can go to the floor and pay a little tribute to my dear friend Mike Enzi that you both served with and so many of you served with, who passed away today, and I am deeply grateful for this opportunity, so thank you. Professor Walch, you mentioned in your written testimony that there are no definitively established definitions in the digital asset space. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. If we can have a law textbook like this one on virtual currency, we should be able to agree on common terms. So why is it so important that Congress and our regulators begin to use the same legal terms to talk about these issues?
Sure. So I've thought a lot about this, and it's been an important part of my research. I think that these problems with terminology come from the fact that these systems are extremely fast-moving, that there are products and activities created in the crypto financial system that kind of mirror the financial systems, but we don't know what to call them. Do you call them the same thing? How are they different, right? So there's a ton of confusion. And we have seen this already reflected in laws that have been passed in a bunch of state legislatures about cryptocurrencies, crypto systems, where misunderstandings and improper terminology is embedded into the definitions of these in the laws that are meant to, support or enable innovation with cryptocurrencies. And I wish there was an easy solution to this problem. We've been talking about it for years, and the language, people keep adding new terms like minor extractable value and yield farming and a whole bunch of things that everyone has to learn anew when they come into the system. So it's a persistent problem and can have important impacts.
Well, thank you, Professor. And I do think that that's a point where Congress can weigh in. So I'm looking forward to working on that through our Financial Innovation Caucus and perhaps bringing something forward definition-wise for us all to consider. Is it Brito or Brito? Well, it's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much. Can you give me some specific use cases on how virtual currency and the distributed ledger technology that underpins these assets has the potential to reduce the cost of financial transactions for everyone and to create a more efficient financial system?
Sure. Thank you for the question. There are any number of use cases where some function that today is happening in a financial system that depends on a centralized intermediary could be done potentially more efficiently if the two parties who rely on that intermediary can connect, one-on-one. And one example that simply comes to mind would be settlement and finality, right? So today, when you want to trade securities or other assets, you ultimately rely on a series of intermediaries that ultimately have one settlement intermediary where there's a book that is updated by that one party. You can imagine a system that depends on one global ledger that anybody has access to and can swap. Senator Toomey mentioned property registries is a potential there. So today in the United States, we have title insurance. Why do we have title insurance? Well, we have title insurance because the chain of title to a piece of property might have been corrupted somewhere along the way. With cryptographic distributed ledgers, the potential for that is greatly, greatly reduced. And so, for example, you might be able to eliminate the need for that kind of insurance.
Well, that's helpful and informative, because I would note that the St. Louis Fed has noted that the U.S. financial sector cost 8.2% of GDP in 2021, and that payments cost around 1% of GDP. Additionally, billions of dollars in capital is trapped every day because of antiquated means of payment that take days or even weeks to settle. For a Fortune 500 company that regularly sends international wire transfers, this is costly, and it's a very big deal, and it's something that we also might be able to take advantage of by some of these new distributed ledger technologies. Mr. Brito, we hear a lot, both true and false, about how our existing financial system benefits some groups more than others. Isn't the transparency and openness of open source finance a huge benefit that can ensure a level playing field, promote financial inclusion, and create trust in our financial system?
So I fear overpromising when it comes to saying that something like Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies like it will guarantee financial inclusion for everybody. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. But what I can say is that because these systems are broadly transparent, you can see where the power centers may be, and you can go and address them, and you can see what the transactions are. And that is a great improvement. And to the extent that you can have parties interacting with each other and doing so transparently, that would reduce the need for trust, as you say.
Well, and one of the points you raised also sort of segues into my next question, and that's about virtual currencies and money laundering. There's a myth that virtual currency is anonymous, but aren't most virtual currency transactions recorded on a publicly available ledger that cannot be easily altered? It seems to me any criminal would avoid creating evidence like that.
Yes, the vast majority of transactions using cryptocurrency are recorded transparently on an open ledger, and these are available to law enforcement. And indeed, talking to law enforcement, they tell us how useful that evidence is. So why do criminals continue to use these networks? Well, because it's Bitcoin and things like it are good for payments, are good for censorship-resistant payments, and so they abuse these networks. But you're right, they create a trail that, with the help of on-ramps and off-ramps that are regulated and compliant, can help law enforcement find and prosecute these criminals.
I thank their witnesses today for their very helpful testimony, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back with my thanks.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.